Snow had a way of making Chicago look innocent. It buried broken sidewalks beneath soft white blankets. It silenced traffic. It softened rooftops. It even disguised blood. On that particular December night, the city looked almost peaceful. But peace was an illusion, especially for the man bleeding into the snow. Mia Bennett tightened the scarf around her neck as freezing wind whipped across the empty parking lot behind the neighborhood library. She hated closing during snowstorms, not because she feared the cold, because storms always left people stranded. She had stayed almost an hour late helping an elderly patron charge his dead phone before locking the heavy wooden doors. Now she just wanted to get home. Her apartment wasn't far, a 20-minute walk through Lincoln Park. Normally she enjoyed it. Tonight, visibility barely stretched 20 feet. Snowflakes crashed sideways beneath yellow streetlights. Her boots crunched across untouched snow while the city disappeared behind curtains of white. Her phone buzzed. Storm warning. Emergency snowfall. Travel not advised. She sighed, a little late for that. She slipped the phone back into her pocket. Then she heard it. Not a scream. Not footsteps. A groan. So quiet she almost convinced herself she'd imagined it. She stopped walking. Nothing. Only wind. She turned again. There. Another sound. Weak. Painful. Coming from the tree line, bordering the park. Her stomach tightened. Every instinct told her to keep walking. Call 911. Don't investigate. Normal people didn't wander into snowstorms, chasing mysterious noises. But Mia had spent her entire life unable to ignore suffering. She stepped off the sidewalk. Hello? No answer. Only snow. Another groan. Closer now. She pushed through heavy drifts until her boot struck something soft. She looked down. A hand? Omen. Half buried beneath snow. Oh my God. She dropped to her knees. A man lay face down beneath layers of white. Black coat. Black gloves. Dark hair dusted with ice. He wasn't moving. She rolled him carefully onto his back. The sight stole her breath. Blood. So much blood. His face looked like he'd survived a war. Bruise. Split lip. Deep cuts across one cheek. His expensive black coat had been soaked crimson before freezing solid. A gunshot wound. She wasn't a doctor, but she'd read enough emergency guides to recognize one. His breathing came shallow. Barely there. She fumbled for her phone. No signal. Of course. The storm had killed reception. No. She looked toward the road. Empty. No cars. No lights. No people. Just snow. The man coughed violently. Blood stained fresh snow beside his face. She couldn't leave him. She couldn't drag him alone either. Unless... her cabin. Well, not exactly hers. Her uncle owned a tiny hunting cabin less than half a mile deeper into the park. He rarely used it during winter. She still had the key. It was their family emergency shelter whenever storms became dangerous. She looked back at the unconscious stranger. If I leave you... His breathing became even slower. Decision made. I'm sorry. She hooked both hands beneath his shoulders. The man weighed far more than she expected. Muscle. Solid. Every inch of him felt carved from stone despite the blood loss. She pulled. One step. Another. Snow resisted every movement. Minutes blurred together. She lost feeling in her fingers. Her back screamed. Still, she kept dragging him. Half carrying. Half pulling. The cabin lights finally appeared between snow-covered pines. She nearly cried. Inside, warmth. A small fireplace. Old leather furniture. Emergency supplies. She locked the door before collapsing beside him. His skin looked dangerously pale. His pulse fluttered beneath frozen skin. Barely alive. She lit the fireplace with shaking hands. Then found blankets. Medical supplies. Hot water. Everything happened instinctively. Cut away damaged clothing. Clean wounds. Stop bleeding. Keep him warm. She worked silently for almost an hour. Only then did she truly look at him. Even unconscious. He was intimidating. Broad shoulders. scar running beneath one ear, hands covered in faded cuts, old bullet wounds across his ribs. This wasn't an ordinary man. He looked dangerous, like violence belonged to him. His right forearm carried a tattoo, a black wolf surrounded by Roman numerals. Beautiful, terrifying. She frowned. Where had she seen that symbol before? Before she could remember, his hand suddenly shot upward, grabbing her wrist, hard. Her breath caught. His eyes opened, dark, cold, predatory. He stared directly into hers, not confused, not grateful, calculating, always calculating. His grip tightened. Who sent you? His voice sounded rough enough to scrape stone. He sat halfway upright despite obvious agony. Answer me. I found you. Silence. You expect me to believe that? She pulled gently against his grip. You were dying. His eyes narrowed. You should have walked away. I couldn't. Another long silence. Snow, battered cabin windows. Fire crackled between them. He continued studying her face, searching, measuring, looking for lies. Finally, you treated my wound. You would have died. He looked down at fresh bandages, then back toward her. Most people would have stolen my watch. Mia blinked. What? His gaze drifted toward the expensive silver watch still resting on his wrist. It costs more than this cabin. She shrugged. I didn't notice. For the first time, something unexpected crossed his expression. Not warmth, not kindness, confusion, as if he'd met a language he'd never learned. Adriano De Luca had spent 15 years believing everyone wanted something from him. Money, power, protection, revenge, fear. Women wanted influence. Politicians wanted favors. Businessmen wanted contracts. Enemies wanted his death. No one, ever, wanted nothing. Yet this woman had dragged nearly 200 pounds of dead weight through a blizzard, saved his life, and ignored a watch worth nearly $300,000. Impossible. His instincts screamed trap. His eyes searched every corner of the cabin. No hidden cameras, no weapons, no backup, just books, stacks of novels beside an old rocking chair, a mug decorated with tiny snowmen, wool blankets, a woman with exhausted eyes trying not to look frightened. What do you do? She hesitated. I'm a librarian. He stared. A librarian? Yes. You expect me to believe librarians rescue armed strangers during blizzards? She smiled despite herself. I wasn't aware there was an official rule against it. Something almost resembled amusement inside him. Almost. It disappeared instantly. Pain suddenly exploded through his side. His body lurched. Blood seeped through fresh bandages. He closed his eyes. Just once. Just long enough. Mia moved beside him. Don't. He caught her wrist again. I need to check. I said don't. His voice remained calm, which somehow felt more dangerous than shouting. She looked directly into his eyes. If you keep bleeding, you'll survive. You won't. Another long silence. Finally, his fingers released her. She gently peeled away the bandage. The bullet had passed through. Lucky. Very lucky. Still, he had lost terrifying amounts of blood. She stitched the wound carefully while he remained completely still. Not a sound. Not a flinch. Only controlled breathing. What kind of person doesn't scream? She whispered. He answered without opening his eyes. The kind who learned nobody comes when you do. The words lingered inside the tiny cabin. Heavy. Lonely. For the first time, she wondered who this stranger truly was. Not because of his scars, not because of the gunshot, but because no one should sound that accustomed to suffering. Outside, far beyond the trees, headlights suddenly appeared. 3 black SUVs cut through the blizzard. Slowly, methodically, searching. Inside the cabin, Adriano's eyes opened instantly. Every trace of weakness vanished. He looked toward the window, then toward Mia. His expression hardened into something almost frightening. They found me. Adriano didn't panic. He became something far more terrifying. perfectly still. The fire crackled softly inside the cabin, while 3 pairs of headlights swept through the trees outside, cutting white beams through the raging snowstorm. Mia instinctively looked toward the window. They're here to help? His eyes snapped toward her. No. Just one word. Cold. Certain. They're here to finish what they started. A violent shiver crawled down Mia's spine. The engines outside went silent. On a bit on. Doors opened. Even through the howling wind, she heard boots crunching through fresh snow. Several men, moving with military precision. Adriano slowly stood. The movement nearly reopened his wound, but he refused to show pain. He crossed the room and quietly extinguished 2 lanterns. The cabin instantly became darker. Only the fireplace painted flickering gold across the walls. Mia whispered, "What do we do?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he pulled back the curtain only half an inch. Outside, black SUVs. At least 8 armed men. Long rifles. Night vision goggles. Professional. His jaw tightened. They found me faster than I expected. You know them? I know who sent them. His voice became colder. Victor. Mia had no idea who Victor was, but the name alone carried enough hatred to make the room feel colder. The first knock came. Slow. Heavy. Boom. 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 Neither of them moved. Another knock. Louder this time. A deep voice echoed through the storm. "We know you're inside." Silence. "We only want the man." Mia looked at Adriano. He remained expressionless. The man outside continued. "Open the door. We'll let you live." Another silence. Then, crack. A rifle round shattered the cabin window. Glass exploded across the wooden floor. Mia screamed as Adriano instantly pulled her down behind the couch. Another bullet ripped through the wall. Then another. The tiny cabin erupted into chaos. Wood splintered. Glass shattered. The fireplace sprayed glowing embers across the floor. Adriano wrapped one arm around Mia's shoulders, shielding her completely with his own body. Every bullet that came through the wall hit furniture instead of her. His breathing remained controlled, almost impossibly calm. He leaned close enough for her to hear him over the gunfire. "When I tell you to run, I'm not leaving you. You are. I'm not." His dark eyes locked onto hers. For one brief second, something changed. Not anger, not annoyance. Respect. "You don't understand." Then explain. "If they see your face." He stopped. "They'll hunt you forever." Another volley tore through the cabin. One bullet struck the bookshelf. Hundreds of novels crashed onto the floor. Mia flinched. Adriano didn't. He simply reached beneath the couch, pulled out a handgun. She stared. "You knew there was a gun here?" "I hide weapons everywhere." "Everywhere?" He glanced at her. "You'd be surprised." Outside, Marco Romano lowered his rifle. "He's still alive." One of Victor's captains stepped beside him. "You sure?" Marco nodded. "He isn't shooting back. He never wastes bullets." The captain smiled, then burned the cabin. A man carrying a gasoline can stepped forward. Inside, Adriano smelled it first. Fuel. His expression darkened. "They're changing tactics." "What does that mean?" "They're about to set the cabin on fire." Mia's heartbeat nearly stopped. "What?" He looked around quickly. Small cabin. One front door. 2 windows. Fireplace. Back storage room. Den. His eyes found something. An old trapdoor beneath a rug. "Does this cabin have a cellar?" Mia blinked. "Yes." He pulled the rug aside. Exactly as he hoped. A narrow underground storm shelter. "Good. Very good." He grabbed her hand. "Come. What about now?" They climbed down just as glass shattered again. Adriano pulled the heavy wooden hatch closed. Darkness swallowed them. Only tiny cracks let faint light inside. Mia could barely hear herself breathing. Then, outside, whoosh, flames. The cabin roof caught fire. Heat spread through the floor above them. Smoke drifted into the shelter. Mia pressed both hands against her mouth. "My uncle's cabin." Adriano looked at her quietly. I'm sorry. It surprised her. Not because he apologized, because he sounded genuine. Minutes passed. Above them, the cabin collapsed. Wood cracked. Flames roared. Outside, the men laughed. One voice shouted, "Nobody survives that." SUV doors slammed. Engine started. Eventually, silence. Only wind remained. Neither Mia nor Adriano moved. He counted slowly inside his head. 5 minutes. 10. 15. Finally, they're gone. He pushed the hatch upward. Snow immediately poured into the shelter. The cabin had become nothing more than blackened ruins. Mia climbed out behind him, her eyes filled with tears. Everything was gone. Photographs, books, her grandmother's rocking chair. Every memory, reduced to ash. She stood silently in falling snow. Adriano watched her. He had seen cities burn, empires collapse, men beg for mercy. None of it unsettled him. But watching this woman stare at the ruins of something she loved made something tighten inside his chest. A feeling he hadn't experienced in years. Guilt. I'm sorry. She didn't answer. He stepped beside her. I'll rebuild it. She laughed softly through tears. You think this is about money? No. It was the last place that reminded me of my family. Silence. Then she whispered, I didn't even know your name. He looked toward the burning ruins. That's safer. For who? For you? Hours later, the snowstorm finally weakened. They reached the road just before dawn. A lonely gas station stood several miles away. Its lights glowed like a beacon. Inside, the elderly cashier looked up. You two look like hell. Mia smiled weakly. You could say that. The cashier hurried toward the phone. I'll call an ambulance. No, Adriano answered immediately. The old man froze. You need a hospital. No hospitals. Sir, I'll leave. The temperature inside the room suddenly dropped. Even the cashier sensed something dangerous beneath Adriano's calm voice. Mia stepped between them. It's okay. She gently lowered the phone. We just need coffee. The old man reluctantly nodded. They sat in silence. Steam rose from 2 paper cups. Adriano studied Mia over the rim of his coffee. She looked exhausted. Tiny cuts covered her hands. Her sweater was stained with his blood. She had lost everything because she'd stopped to help a stranger. Still, she hadn't asked who he was, or why armed men wanted him dead. Finally, she spoke. You should see a doctor. I have one. Where? He looked toward the snowy highway. They'll find me. So you're just gonna keep bleeding? I've survived worse. She shook her head. I don't understand you. No. He quietly agreed. You don't. Outside, a black helicopter appeared over distant trees. Adriano noticed it instantly. His people. Finally, the helicopter circled once before, landing in a frozen field beyond the gas station. Within seconds, 4 black SUVs arrived. Perfectly synchronized. Every door opened simultaneously. Men in black suits stepped out. Disciplined. Silent. Armed. Each lowered his weapon the moment Adriano emerged. Then something happened that Mia never expected. Every single man bowed his head. Not dramatically. Not theatrically. Simply respect. Absolute loyalty. A tall, silver-haired man approached first. His expensive coat was covered in snow. Boss. Boss? Mia looked toward Adriano. The older man continued. We've secured the city. Another nodded. The docks are under control. A third added, we eliminated Victor's West Side crews. Nobody questioned him. Nobody interrupted him. Dozens of hardened men simply waited for Adriano to speak. His presence alone controlled the air around them. Mia suddenly realized the stranger she'd rescued wasn't merely dangerous. He commanded dangerous men. He looked back at her. For the first time, she saw the invisible wall return. His expression became unreadable, cold, intouchable. The vulnerable man from the cabin disappeared. Standing before her now was someone entirely different, someone born to rule violence. He walked toward her slowly, reached into his coat, removed a folded piece of paper. My doctor, she frowned. What? If you ever need anything. He handed her the paper. A phone number. Nothing else. No name. No address. No explanation. She looked up. I still don't know who you are. For several seconds, he simply stared at her. Snow drifted silently between them. Finally, he answered, the less you know, the longer you'll live. Then he turned away. Without another word, he entered the waiting SUV. The convoy pulled away. Black vehicles disappearing one by one into the snow-covered highway. The helicopter lifted into the gray winter sky. Within moments, they were gone, leaving only tire tracks fading beneath fresh snowfall. Mia stood alone beside the road, clutching the small piece of paper in her trembling hand. She whispered into the cold morning air, "Who are you?" Nearly 10 miles away, inside the armored SUV, Adriano looked through the rear window until Mia disappeared from sight. His right-hand man, Luca, noticed. You've never looked back before. Adriano remained silent. Luca hesitated. What should we do about the woman? A long pause filled the vehicle. Then Adriano gave the order that would quietly change Mia Bennett's life forever. No one touches her. Another pause. And if anyone even asks about the librarian, his dark eyes settled on the snow-covered city ahead. Erased them. Far across Chicago, hidden inside a luxury penthouse overlooking the skyline, Victor Moretti watched grainy drone footage of the burned cabin. He smiled. So, he murmured, the ghost survived. His smile slowly widened as another image appeared on the screen. A woman dragging Adriano through the snow. Mia Bennett. Victor tapped the frozen frame with one finger. There you are. The hunt had just begun. 3 months later, Chicago had buried the storm beneath the rhythm of ordinary life. Snow melted into rain. Rain gave way to cold spring mornings. People forgot the headlines about a mysterious cabin fire found deep inside Lincoln Park. The police ruled it an accident. Insurance companies closed their files. The city moved on. Mia Bennett tried to do the same. She returned to the neighborhood library every morning at 8. She helped children find adventure novels, recommended mysteries to retirees, read fairy tales during Saturday story hour. She smiled. She laughed. She rebuilt her routine one quiet day at a time. Yet every night, just before falling asleep, she remembered a pair of impossibly calm, dark eyes. The less you know, the longer you'll live. She never called the number he'd given her. Not once. Sometimes she took the folded paper from the drawer beside her bed, looked at it, then placed it back. She told herself it was over. That mysterious stranger had disappeared into whatever dangerous world he belonged to. Their lives had crossed for one impossible night. Nothing more. She was wrong. Nearly 6 miles away, inside the highest floor of DeLuca Tower, Adriano DeLuca stood before floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Chicago. The city glittered beneath him. Every harbor, every casino, every luxury hotel, every shipping route, most belonged to him. Some legally, many not. Luca Romano entered quietly. You haven't slept. I don't need sleep. You've been saying that for 3 days. Adriano didn't answer. Instead, he watched tiny headlights moving along Lakeshore Drive, a city of millions. Yet his attention rested on one person. Lucas Ail. Our accountants finished the report. Silence. The Southside Agreement is signed. Silence. The governor accepted your proposal. Nothing. Finally, Luca placed a thin folder on the desk. The librarian. Only then, Adriano turned. He hated that word. Not because of her. Because hearing it exposed something inside himself he refused to acknowledge. Luca opened the folder. She's exactly where she always is. Photographs. Mia entering the library. Buying coffee. Walking home. Reading alone in the park. Nothing unusual. No threats. No suspicious contacts. No enemies. Adriano looked through every photograph. He didn't realize the corners of his mouth softened almost imperceptibly. Luca noticed, which worried him. You've had surveillance on her for 92 days? Adriano closed the folder. I know. You check every report yourself. I know. You've replaced every security camera on her street. Silence. You bought the apartment building across from hers. Still silence. Luca finally asked the question no one else dared. Boss. Adriano looked up. Why? The room remained silent. Finally, he answered honestly. Because Victor is still alive. Luca nodded. That was true, but it wasn't the whole truth. Not even close. Across town, Mia unlocked the library doors. Morning, Miss Bennett. A little girl ran inside carrying 3 fantasy novels. Mia laughed. Finished these already? I stayed up all night. You definitely shouldn't tell your mother that. The little girl grinned. You won't either. Mia winked. Our secret. Moments like these reminded her why she loved this job. Books changed people. Sometimes quietly. Sometimes forever. She was shelving new arrivals when someone approached the information desk. A man. Expensive navy suit. Perfect posture. Silver tea. Late 60s. His smile looked warm. His eyes didn't. Miss Bennett. Yes? My name is Charles Whitmore. He offered a business card. She glanced down. Whitmore Foundation. One of Chicago's largest charities. I'm organizing our annual literacy gala. He smiled again. We'd be honored if you accepted our community reading award. Mia blinked. My award? You've increased children's literacy across 3 neighborhoods. I was just doing my job. Exactly. He chuckled. People who say that usually deserve recognition. She hesitated. I don't really attend galas. You'd be helping the library. That changed everything. The event raises millions every year. The publicity alone could fund your children's program. Mia smiled. Then I'd love to come. Charles extended his hand. Wonderful. As he walked away, he discreetly touched the tiny earpiece hidden beneath his hair. She's accepted. Miles away. Inside a black SUV, Adriano closed his eyes. Good. Everything was moving exactly as planned. That evening, Mia returned home carrying groceries. She froze. Her apartment door stood slightly open. Every instinct screamed, run. Instead, she slowly pushed the door wider. Nothing looked stolen. Furniture untouched. Books exactly where she'd left them. Too perfect. Someone had been inside. Not torop. To search. Her breathing quickened. She grabbed her phone. Before she could dial, a knock echoed behind her. She spun around. An elderly woman stood in the hallway holding a casserole dish. Oh, good. The neighbor smiled. I've been waiting. What? A maintenance man fixed your lock. My lock? He said your landlord sent him. Mia frowned. My landlord never mentioned. The woman shrugged. Nice young man. She walked away. Mia looked back toward her apartment. Everything felt wrong. She locked every window, checked every room. Nothing. Yet she couldn't shake the feeling someone had watched her. They had, from the rooftop across the street, a sniper lowered his rifle. Target confirmed. Another voice answered through his headset. Hold position. The sniper frowned. Why aren't we taking her? Orders changed. What orders? A pause. Then, someone got to her first. 1 block away, inside a parked black Mercedes. Adriano watched the rooftop through binoculars. He never looked toward Mia's apartment. He didn't need to. He already knew she was safe. Luca lowered another pair of binoculars. Victor's scout? Adriano nodded once. Kill him? No. Why? Follow him. We'll find Victor. Luca smiled slightly. Now you're thinking. 2 nights later, the Whitmore Charity Gala transformed Chicago's historic museum into a palace of crystal chandeliers and black tuxedos. Luxury cars lined the entrance. Politicians, judges, CEOs, celebrities, television cameras. Mia nearly turned around 3 different times. She had borrowed a navy blue evening gown from a friend. Elegant. Simple. She still felt completely out of place. The doorman smiled warmly. "Welcome." She stepped inside. The ballroom stole her breath. Golden lights reflected from marble floors. A live orchestra played softly. Champagne glasses sparkled beneath enormous chandeliers. This is incredible. She wandered carefully among guests worth billions. Nobody noticed her, which suited her perfectly. Until the room suddenly changed. Music continued. Conversation continued. Yet something invisible shifted. People stopped smiling. Businessmen straightened. Politicians glanced toward the entrance. Security agents discreetly touched earpieces. Mia looked toward the grand staircase. Someone had arrived. Black, tailored suit. Perfect posture. Calm expression. No bodyguards visible. He didn't need them. The ballroom seemed to part before him without anyone asking. People moved instinctively. Respect. Fear. Both. Mia's heart stopped. Impossible. The stranger. The man she dragged through the snow. Completely transformed. No bruise. No blood. No weakness. Only power. He climbed the staircase slowly, while dozens of influential people waited below. The museum director approached him first. Then the mayor. Then 2 United States senators. Each greeted him with unmistakable respect. Mia whispered to herself, "It can't be." The woman beside her overheard. "You don't know who he is?" Mia shook her head. The woman stared as though she'd admitted not knowing the president. "That's Adriano De Luca." Mia repeated the name silently. "He owns De Luca Holdings." "I've never heard of it." The woman laughed softly. "You wouldn't. What do they do?" A long pause. Then, "They own Chicago." Mia looked back toward the staircase. Adriano's gaze had already found her. Across hundreds of guests. Across an enormous ballroom. Their eyes met. Neither smiled. Neither moved. For several endless seconds, everything around them disappeared. She finally understood. The expensive watch. The scars. The helicopters. The armed convoy. The men calling him boss. He wasn't merely wealthy. He wasn't merely dangerous. He was one of the most powerful men in America. And somehow, he had hidden the truth from her with nothing more than silence. Then something even stranger happened. Adriano excused himself from the city's most powerful people, ignoring politicians, ignoring billionaires, ignoring television cameras. He walked directly toward the quiet librarian standing alone beside the orchestra. The room noticed. Conversation slowed. Heads turned. Whispers spread. Who's she? Does he know her? I've never seen him approach anyone first. Mia suddenly wished she could disappear. Adriano stopped only inches away, close enough that she could smell cedar and expensive cologne. His expression remained perfectly controlled, but his voice softened almost imperceptibly. "You came." She stared at him. "You knew I'd be here. I invited you." Realization struck. Charles Whitmore, my foundation. She looked around the ballroom. "So, this whole event helps libraries." He finished calmly. "You weren't lied to." "No," she admitted quietly. "I just wasn't told everything." Another silence settled between them. The orchestra continued playing. Neither noticed. Finally, she looked directly into his eyes. "You disappeared. I had to. You could have said goodbye." For the first time that evening, regret flickered across Adriano's face. "I know." Before either of them could say another word, a champagne glass shattered somewhere across the ballroom. Then another. Luca's voice crackled through Adriano's hidden earpiece. "Boss." Adriano's entire posture changed. "What is it?" "We have movement." His eyes swept across the crowded ballroom. Every instinct sharpened. 3 armed men just entered through the East Service corridor. Mia noticed the change immediately. "What happened?" He looked directly at her. His voice dropped into the same calm tone she'd heard inside the cabin months earlier. "The gala is over." She frowned. "What?" Then, the ballroom lights suddenly went black. A woman's scream echoed through the darkness, and somewhere inside the museum, a gunshot rang out. The gunshot echoed through the museum like a crack of thunder. For one heartbeat, everything stopped. Then, chaos erupted. Crystal glasses shattered against marble floors. Women screamed. Politicians dove beneath banquet tables. The orchestra abandoned their instruments. Security agents reached for concealed weapons. The magnificent ballroom dissolved into panic. Only one man remained perfectly still, Adriano De Luca. His eyes swept across the darkness, calculating every possible angle before the emergency lights flickered to life, bathing the ballroom in a dim crimson glow. Luca. His voice remained calm. Seal every exit. Already moving, Luca answered through the earpiece. Done. Adriano turned toward Mia. She had instinctively stepped back, her pulse racing. What is happening? He ignored the question. Instead, he reached for her hand. The same hand that had once pulled him through the snow. This time, his fingers closed around hers. Don't let go. The first attack. 3 masked gunmen burst through the east corridor. Automatic rifles. Military armor. Professional formation. They weren't there to rob the gala. They weren't there to make a statement. They were hunting one man. The lead assassin shouted, "Kill De Luca." Gunfire exploded across the ballroom. Guests scattered in every direction. Without hesitation, Adriano pulled Mia behind a marble column as bullets ripped chunks from the stone. She gasped, "You have a gun?" He looked at her only briefly. "I always have a gun." His pistol appeared almost magically in his hand. 2 precise shots. 2 attackers collapsed before they understood where the bullets had come from. The third disappeared behind overturned tables. Adriano didn't chase him. His entire focus remained on Mia. "Are you hurt?" She stared at him in disbelief. "They're trying to kill you." I asked if you're hurt. "No." "Good." Only then did he move again. The truth comes out. Outside, black SUVs screamed into the museum courtyard. More than 30 armed men poured from the vehicles. Each wore the Black Wolf insignia Mia remembered from Adriano's tattoo. His soldiers? Within seconds, they secured every entrance. Guests watched in stunned silence. No police. No federal agents. Just an army that answered to one man. A frightened senator whispered, "May God." The ghost brought his family. Mia looked at Adriano. The ghost? He didn't answer. He never had. Victor's final move. On the museum rooftop, Victor Moretti watched the operation collapse. His assassins were dead. His escape routes blocked. He smiled anyway. "You always protect everyone else first, Adriano." He lifted a sniper rifle. "But tonight, you'll choose." His crosshairs drifted past Adriano, past Luca, past the guards. They settled on Mia. 1 second. Inside the ballroom, Adriano suddenly froze. Years of instinct screamed before logic could. Someone was watching. His eyes lifted toward the enormous glass ceiling. One brief flash. A rifle scope. Mia. He lunged. The sniper fired. The bullet shattered the chandelier above them. Thousands of crystal shards rained through the ballroom. Adriano wrapped both arms around Mia, twisting his own body between her and the falling glass. The chandelier crashed against the marble floor. Crystal exploded in every direction. When the dust settled, silence. Mia slowly opened her eyes. Adriano still held her. His expensive tuxedo was covered in blood. Not hers. His, a jagged crystal shard, had torn deep into his shoulder. She reached toward the wound. "You're bleeding." It missed my heart. He almost sounded disappointed. The rooftop. Luca's voice exploded through the radio. "Sniper." Adriano looked upward. There. His men stormed the rooftop. Seconds later, gunfire echoed above. Then silence. Luca returned. "It's Victor." Adriano's expression changed. For months he had waited for this moment. Alive? Barely. Bring him. Face to face. Victor Moretti was dragged into the ballroom on his knees. The guests watched in horrified silence. The man who had terrorized Chicago for years now looked broken. Blood ran down one side of his face. He laughed anyway. "You finally fell in love." No one spoke. Victor looked toward Mia. I spent months trying to understand why. Then back to Adriano. The ghost. Saved by a librarian. He laughed again. You became human. Adriano slowly approached. So this was never about territory. It stopped being about territory. Victor smiled weakly. The night she dragged you through the snow. Mia felt her stomach tighten. He knew? Adriano answered quietly. He found the cabin. Victor nodded. I watched everything. He turned toward Mia. Do you know how many people died because he couldn't stop watching you? She looked at Adriano. What does he mean? No answer. Victor laughed again. He bought your apartment building. Her heart stopped. He replaced your neighbors with his people. Silence. He followed you every morning. Another silence. He knew every coffee shop you visited. Mia slowly stepped backward. Victor's voice became softer. You thought saving him was the end. It was only the beginning. The obsession. The ballroom suddenly felt much smaller. Mia looked directly into Adriano's eyes. Is it true? He remained silent. Answer me. Yes. You watched me? Yes. For months? Yes. You followed me. I protected you. I never asked you to. No. His voice remained calm. You didn't. She stared at him in disbelief. You invaded my life. I kept you alive. I could have lived without knowing. His eyes never left hers. You wouldn't have. Those 5 words carried no arrogance. Only certainty. The choice. Police sirens finally echoed outside. Real police this time. Federal agents. News helicopters. The museum would soon be surrounded. Luca stepped forward. Boss. Adriano nodded. He understood. If the authorities entered now, Mia would become part of every investigation. Her life would never be normal again. He looked at her, the woman who had changed him without trying. I made one promise to myself. She waited. If my world ever reached yours, he swallowed slowly. I'd be the one to walk away. She searched his face. For the first time, the most feared man in Chicago looked tired. Not physically. Emotionally, he turned toward Luca. Erase every record connecting Miss Bennett to tonight. Luca nodded immediately. It'll be done. Adriano looked back at Mia. You deserve the life you had before me. He placed the folded piece of paper she'd never used back into her hand. The number still works. Then he walked away. Without looking back, 6 months later, autumn arrived in Chicago. The library had been completely renovated. Children filled the new reading room every afternoon. A bronze plaque near the entrance read, Anonymous donation. No amount listed. No name. Only gratitude. Mia smiled every time she passed it. She never discovered who funded the renovation. At least, not officially. She had tried to forget. She almost succeeded, until one rainy evening. The library closed late. She stepped outside, carrying an umbrella. Across the street, a familiar black Mercedes waited beneath a glowing street lamp. The engine wasn't running. No bodyguard stood nearby. Only one man, leaning quietly against the car, hands in his pockets, watching the rain, watching her. He hadn't changed. Neither had the way her heart reacted when she saw him. She crossed the street slowly. You promised to walk away. I did. She stopped only a few feet from him. So why are you here? Adriano looked toward the rain-covered skyline. I kept my promise. Then he finally met her eyes. I stayed away until Chicago was finally safe. Silence settled between them. Not uncomfortable, not uncertain, just honest. Mia smiled for the first time that night. You still watch me? A faint smile so subtle that almost no one else would have noticed appeared at the corner of his mouth. Less than before. She laughed softly. I suppose that's progress. It is. He hesitated, something he almost never did. I won't ask you to enter my world. She stepped closer. And if I choose to? For the first time since the snowstorm, Adriano had no prepared answer. His carefully controlled composure cracked. Only slightly. Enough for Mia to see the man behind the legend. She reached for his hand. This time, He didn't stop himself from holding hers. Rain fell around them. Traffic rolled through distant streets. The city that feared him carried on without realizing that its most powerful man had finally discovered the one thing he could never command: love. As they stood together beneath the umbrella, black SUVs remained parked discreetly at the far end of the street, far enough away to give them privacy, close enough to protect them if the darkness ever returned, because some wars never truly ended. And somewhere beyond Chicago, someone had just opened an old file marked Adriano de Luca. On the cover, a new photograph had been clipped beside his, a smiling librarian named Mia Bennett. The hunt for the ghost might have ended, but a far more dangerous story was only beginning.